Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be comparing the all-new Ford Bronco Raptor to the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 to see which crazy convertible off-road SUV is best. Before we get into this video, though, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Ed Kenley Ford here in Layton, Utah for giving me some time with this Bronco Raptor. I'm going to include a link to their website in the description down below so you can check out what they have currently. And if you don't know, Ed Kenley Ford does not charge over MSRP for any of their product, so if you want a great deal on a new Ford, definitely reach out to them. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Powering the Bronco Raptor is a turbocharged 3-liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 418 horsepower and then 442 pound-feet of torque. Now, powering the Wrangler is a naturally aspirated 6.4-liter Hemi V8 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs with this engine are 470 horsepower and then 470 pound-feet of torque. And when it comes to fuel economy, you can expect to average about 16 miles per gallon with both of them, and that's from my real-world tests. Now, before we go over the front ends, I do want to mention a couple things. First off, this is going to be a two-part series. This video is going to be the walk around, and then there's going to be another video which will be driving. And because this is a two-part series, I recommend that you subscribe because, well, I post content like this every single day. Now, starting with the Bronco Raptor, this thing looks absolutely menacing. I mean, it makes the regular Bronco with the Sasquatch package look like an absolute pipsqueak. This is like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of Broncos. It's pretty crazy. I love the venting there. On the hood, that thing looks fantastic. And then you guys can see here with the Ford logo and then the LED lights. And then of course we got our bash plate down below. With the Raptor package, we've got 13.1 inches of ground clearance. And yeah, just look at this thing. Now with the Wrangler, this is a lot more subtle. I mean, you do have the 392 badge and you do have the Hydro Guide here in the center, which is pretty aggressive, but it looks pretty much just like every other Wrangler, which is kind of hilarious. Now this has the Extreme Recon package, so it's got 12.9 inches of ground clearance, so just a little bit less than the Bronco. Now the Bronco Raptor has 37s wrapped around 17-inch wheels in the front and in the rear. And you guys can see, I mean, these tires are absolutely massive. And you also obviously have the giant fender flares that are part of the Bronco Raptor package. Now, something that's important to note is the Bronco Raptor does have independent front suspension. And then notice with the fixed side steps there as well. And then here's your full side view on the Bronco Raptor. And in all black, this actually looks really cool. It's kind of like a Batmobile off-roader. Now the Wrangler with the Extreme Recon package has 17-inch wheels, just like the Bronco Raptor, but it's got 35s. You cannot get 37s. You're going to have to add that after the fact if you want bigger tires. And then you guys can see here with the fender flares how they're body painted. They're also very big, just like the Bronco Raptor. They're not quite as big, but they're still pretty large. And then with the Wrangler, you actually have a solid front axle. And then you guys can see you've got rock rail protection. And then here's your full side view with the Wrangler. Again, it looks more normal Wrangler. Now, I quickly want to touch on a design quirk that is fantastic on the Bronco Raptor and not so fantastic on the Rubicon 392. So with the Bronco Raptor, notice here, you've got this piece that's actually removable, and this is an area that's going to, be pretty high traffic for rocks and everything. That's why they have that little piece that you can easily replace once it gets cracked and everything. And then notice with the fender flare how it connects to the bodywork right there, so you're not going to get any rocks or anything. They're going to, sit there. Whereas with the Wrangler, you can see I got a bunch of rocks chilling in here because of how the fender flare kind of like folds into the body. So having a replaceable fender flare part and fender flares that don't basically hold rocks, that's a big plus for the Bronco Raptor. Now the Bronco Raptor has Fox shocks, so they're live valve Fox shocks just like on the F-150 Raptor, which means that this is basically a Baja rig. So we've got 14 inches of travel in the rear and then 13 inches of travel in the front. Now with the Wrangler 392, well, it's actually easier to see from down below, I guess. We've just got these regular Mopar shocks, solid rear axle. So this is more of like a rock crawling rig. There's not really any sort of high-speed capability with it, even though it has a very powerful engine. Now, storage space is obviously very important with both of these vehicles. Now, with the Wrangler hatch, it's actually really easy to open. And you guys can see with the window. And we've got quite a bit of storage space back here. Obviously, we also have the painted top as well, or sorry, the roll cage rather, which I think is pretty cool. Alpine sound system. But yeah, very spacious here in the back. And with the Wrangler, you just do the window first. And then it's really easy to close. even though it's got the 35 here on the back, it's actually still pretty light. And then by the way, there's the rest of the rear of the Wrangler. Now with the Bronco Raptor, just like other Broncos, it's got the multiple compressions. So from like a muscle perspective, you don't have to use nearly as much muscle to open it up, but it does take longer to open it up. Anyways, with the window, pretty easy. Storage space, it's pretty much the same as the Wrangler. It might be a little bit wider back here, but it's very similar overall. And then same thing in the order with closing it, window first. And then this, definitely lighter, even though it's got a bigger tire. Again, we've got a 37 back here. It's a little bit easier to close the Bronco Raptor rear. And then there's the back of the Raptor. And seeing them next to each other, again, you gotta remember, this is a 392 that's lifted from the factory. Obviously, I haven't done any modifications to it with 35s, and it looks just so small compared to the Raptor. Now, popping into the Wrangler, I really like the trim here, and then of course you got the bronze stitching, and then I also like the trim on the door panel itself. It's kind of like soft touch a little bit. And then you got these nice leather seats here with the Rubicon 392. You've got vents here in the back, window controls, you got a full outlet, and then I guess I'll quickly pop in so you guys can see what legroom is like here in the Wrangler, and then headroom as well. It's going to be great in both of them because, again, they're boxes, so you're going to have quite a bit of space. And opening up the door panel with the Bronco Raptor, I do like this trim right here, but then the rest of the door panel, unlike the Wrangler, is just like hard touch plastic. So I think that this is nicer than what's in the Wrangler in terms of what it looks like, but then the rest of this, the Wrangler's nicer. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, these seats look way cooler. These are the Alcantara seats, which, yeah, pretty cool. And then we have a little grab handle to help out. Legroom's about the same. Obviously you got stadium seating, so you kind of sit higher. The Wrangler doesn't have that. No vents here in the rear, but we do have window controls, which is nice. And then for those of you wondering, headroom's really good. This never gets old. Yeah. So front door panel with the Wrangler, same thing. And hopefully you guys can see on camera, like when you press this, it kind of like pushes in a little bit. It just feels a little bit more expensive than the plastic you get in the Bronco. But anyways, here is the steering wheel. Let me turn up the climate so it kind of calms down. I love the steering wheel in the Wrangler 392. Really nice leather trim. I got paddle shifters there on the back, which frankly, as a Wrangler 392 owner, I rarely use them, to be honest. And then you got this gauge cluster, which is like half digital, half analog. Pretty cool look. And then with the camera system, I think this is important for people buying these. You just have backup camera, forward camera here with the Wrangler 392. And then you guys can see here for the rest of the setup, we do have heated seats, heated steering wheel. But response time of the screen overall is pretty solid. You got dual zone climate. Now this does have some cool off-road tech. You've got off-road cruise control. And then you guys can see we can open or close the valves on the exhaust to make it louder or quieter. And of course, window controls in the center, normal Wrangler fashion. And then you got 4 auxiliary switches to add items. And then you can see we've got our Off-Road Plus with our sway bar disconnect. We've got front and rear lockers here with the Rubicon 392. And then you get your 4-wheel drive shifter. So this isn't 4-wheel drive all the time. The sunlight's probably gonna make it so you can't see very well. You've got 4-wheel auto, 4-wheel high part-time, neutral, and then 4-wheel low, and then shifter for the 8-speed automatic transmission. And then the center console area is kind of interesting here, and normal center console. Just got my wallet and stuff in there. Please don't steal from me, people. I'm just kidding. Anyways, you got the gray here. I need to clean this off. This is so dusty. And then you guys can see the stitching here at the top, and then pretty normal glove box. It's small in the Wrangler, which is something to mention. And then I do have the insulation here at the top, but you can take off the top pretty easily, just those latches. And on the back, you do have to use tools for that whole setup. Now this is a lot more reasonable to start up because it's a V6. But same thing that I said with the door panel, and hopefully you guys can see what I'm saying. Like, I really like this. It's just the rest of the door panel itself. But anyways, taking a look at the steering wheel of the Bronco Raptor, I'm gonna give this steering wheel the win because it's Raptor steering wheel. It looks so much cooler. You got the marker there at the top. Paddle shifters, which by the way, whenever I drive Raptors, I actually use the paddle shifters. It's just because of how the transmissions perform. We'll kind of talk about with driving. But notice we've got the exhaust, which we can make louder or quieter. You've got the suspension, which you can adjust. You've got your custom mode. You've got your steering, which you can adjust. There's a lot more customization. And I didn't mention the Wrangler does have adaptive cruise control. This one does as well. And then we've got a full digital gauge cluster in the Bronco Raptor. So that's definitely a cool feature. And the Wrangler has the Off-Road Plus, but this also happens to have like tons of on-road and off-road modes, just like a regular F-150 Raptor. And then 360 camera system with this, larger view as well. So I'd say that this is overall like a better camera system compared to the Wranglers. And then you got 12-inch display here. Now the 2024 Wrangler will have a larger infotainment system, but I haven't reviewed that infotainment system in the Wrangler yet, so I can't comment on that. But what I can say is I really do like how this is integrated. And then you guys can see analog controls here for the radio, climate. You got heated seats, dual zone climate, all that same stuff that you have in the Wrangler. And then I love how the little Bronco thing has marker lights, because Raptor, I think that's pretty cool. But anyways, speaking of off-road stuff, we have a stabilizer bar disconnect, front and rear lockers, trail turn assist, stability control. So this has all the same off-road tech as what the Wrangler has. And on top of that, two-wheel drive. So you don't have to be in four-wheel drive all the time like you have to be in the Wrangler. And then you got your window controls here in the center. And then you guys can see the center console with the little Raptor logo. The glove box in the Bronco Raptor, yeah, I remember, it's definitely bigger. And then you guys can see Bronco right there. And then nice stitching here on the dash. So the dash part, material-wise, I think is nicer. It's just kind of like the door panel and then some of this trim here that they... Actually, no, the Wrangler, it's pretty plasticky there as well. So that comment goes away. Anyways, 6 auxiliary switches here in the Bronco Raptor. So the Bronco Raptor wins when it comes to auxiliary switches. And then you got your hard top just like the Wrangler. The insulation in the Bronco Raptor though is better. It's more daily drivable from that perspective. Now when it comes to pricing, both of these vehicles, if you basically give them all the options, are gonna be like mid $90,000 range, which is crazy. Like, we live in a world where utilitarian off-roaders from Jeep and Ford cost almost $100,000. Crazy, crazy world. But anyways, if you want to see the driving comparison with this, like I said, subscribe so that as soon as I post that video, you can be notified that that video is posted, and I'll see you.